This lesson is chapter 1.3, solving equations with variables on both sides. And this picture I put up just to help you remember that an equation has to be balanced. So what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Okay, so what I've got here first are some steps to help you remember how to solve an equation with variables on both sides. I don't expect you to memorize this. I think you'll see the steps as we go through examples, but if you want to pause and write this down, you can. I was just going to go over them really quick. First of all, we use the distributive property to remove any grouping symbols. So in order for us to use what's in parentheses, we have to distribute first, and that gets rid of the parentheses. Okay, we simplify the expression on each side of the equation. So we fiddle around with what's on each side of the equation first. Then we collect the variable terms, so the terms with x or y or whatever, we collect those on one side of the equation, and we collect the constant terms on the other side of the equation. Then we isolate the variable and check our solution if we're asked to do that. Okay, so here's our first one. And if it helps you to draw a line down from the equal sign, go ahead and do that if that helps you to remember to keep it balanced. All right, and so I look at both sides. This side of the equation is totally simplified. There's nothing I can do with this. And I look over at this, and there's only the negative 9x, so there's nothing I can do there. So I move to the step that talks about putting the constant terms on one side and the variable terms on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4x to both sides of the equation, because that takes this negative 4x out. So I'm left with 10 equals negative 5x. And now to get x by itself, I need to divide by negative 5. So I end up with negative 2 equals x. And it says to check my solution. So if I plug negative 2 back into this equation, I'm checking to see if this equation is true, if these two sides equal each other. Well, on this side I have 10 plus 8, and on this side, negative 9 times negative 2 is a positive 18, and 10 plus 8 does equal 18. So my answer is negative 2. All right, the next problem I have, a little more complicated. Okay, this one, we actually need to distribute on both sides. Okay, so here's my line again, if that helps you. All right, and I look and I can distribute on this side, and I can also distribute on this side. I can't do anything with these expressions in the parentheses until I distribute, so you have to distribute first. Okay, so if I distribute this 3, I get 9x minus 12. And over here, I'm going to distribute this 1/4. And multiplying by 1/4 is the same thing as saying divided by 4. Okay? So 1/4 times 32 is the same thing as 32 divided by 4. So that gives me 8x. And then 56 divided by 4 is 14. Okay, so now I look, I have these two things equal to each other. This is as simplified as it can be. This is as simplified as it can be. So now we start moving terms around to get the x's on one side and the constants on the other. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is I am going to subtract 8x from both sides. That gets rid of this 8x. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm left with x minus 12 equals 14. And now I want to get this 12 over here, so I do that by adding 12 to both sides. And I get x equals 26. Now if it asks you to check your solution, then you take your solution and plug it in for x. in the original equation. And I'm not going to do that for the sake of time, but x equals 26 is the correct answer. When it's put in here, it makes a true statement. Both sides are equal to each other. All right. So I want you to take a minute, and I want you to get a scratched piece of paper, and I want you to try these. So go ahead and pause. All right, so over here, this is very similar to the first one we had. Okay, there's not anything we can do on either side to start. They're both simplified. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 3x and I'm going to move it over here by subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. I get negative 5x equals 10. Divide by negative 5, and I get x equals negative 2. I think that was the answer to the first one, 2. Anyway, this one I need to distribute first so that I can use these terms. So when I distribute by 1/2, when I'm multiplying by a fraction, this is the same thing as saying 6 divided by 2. Okay? So 6 divided by 2 is 3h, minus 4 times 1/2, same thing as 4 divided by 2, that's 2, equals negative 5h plus 1. Oops, that doesn't look like it equals, does it? All right, so now I need to get the h's on one side, the constants on the other side. So I think I'm going to add 5h to both sides. This gives me 8h minus 2 equals, this cancels, 1. And now if I add 2 to both sides, I get 8h equals 3. Divide by 8 on both sides, and I get the answer h equals 3/8. Okay, so I hope that's what you got on those problems. We will continue the lesson in the next video.